Welcome everybody, I'm Sandman with 311 Griffins FS, 311 FS Griffins, however, I don't know, I'm going to stop even saying that. Uh, and we're back in the F-18, and today we're going to do some prohibited maneuvers out of the NATOPS manual. And I kind of messed up the audio on this particular video while I was shooting it, so I'm just muting the audio and I'm doing a voiceover. I don't need that audio anyway. So let's get up in the air here. There we go. Carrier launch. Now the first thing that we're going to do is transition from full flaps to auto flaps in at less than 250 knots airspeed. That is prohibited, and what could happen is you could have roll and yaw departures. So let's give it a go. Full flaps. Let's transition to auto. Okay, nose comes down. That's kind of what I would expect. Not that big of a deal. Okay. So nothing really crazy happened. Now that we got test number 1 out of the way, I want to point out that it may be, these things may not work the way one would expect if you just read the manual. And the reason for that is, A, I might not do it right. B, or 2, it may not be modeled in the game. And D, it could be something that that in real life, even if you did it, most of the time nothing bad would happen. It might be something you just don't want to tempt fate with, you just don't want to mess up the systems with, it's not worth the risk, or whatever. So, test number 2 is greater than 360 degrees, full lateral stick or full rudder. And I did lateral stick, rudder would take a while. That was 360 degree rolls, whatever that math works out to, I don't know. Nothing crazy happened. Again, it may just be that it's saving undue wear and tear on the airplane. It may be that it's not good for the pilot to do those maneuvers. It may be that it's just introducing the chance for failures into the system, but they may not fail. There's a number of reasons why this stuff may not work. Okay, so the next thing we're going to test number 3, is negative G for greater than 10 seconds. So we're going to gain a little bit of altitude here, and then we're going to do a negative G dive, basically. Okay, so I'm not going to count. I counted when I did it. I think this is about 12, a count of 12. I could look on my timeline, but I'm too lazy to do that. So again, that might be something you don't want to do because of fuel starvation on the engine. The feed tanks could run out of fuel, and maybe in negative G it can't bring new fuel in. I don't know. Some aircraft are kind of that way. It could be that the pilot might enter red out or start red out onset. I don't know. So the next thing we just did right there is a negative G maneuver with less than 1 minute since the last negative G maneuver. So 2 negative G maneuvers with less than 1 minute spacing between them. That's what we just tested there. Nothing crazy happened. It looked like there might have been the onset of simulated red out. I'm not really for sure. Okay, so now we're going to do a negative G push with more than 180 degrees of roll. That is also prohibited. Once again, I think I saw the onset of simulated red out. Not for sure. So nothing crazy is happening so far. These aren't super interesting things that are going on, but I just wanted to test them because I specifically read them as things that could happen in or things not to do, and so I just wanted to try them out. So normal flight, we're going into recovery mode. Let's yank around on the control surfaces and see what happens. To be honest, it feels, or it looks like there might be a little bit more pitch and roll and yaw allowed, I guess. I don't know, in degrees per minute. I don't know that for a fact. My bet would be that you don't want to flip the recovery switch on because it's not necessary, and it changes the flight control system behavior a little bit. So there's no sense in introducing potential failures or potential anomalies or differences in behavior if you don't need to. And as WAG said in one of the videos, the real pilots that they've been talking to never use that switch. Okay, so that was the recovery switch in normal flight. And so for the next test, I'm going to have to set some stuff up. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it here, and then we'll come back. Okay, so I'm setting my bingo fuel to 1900 or below because I want to get my fuel down to that level or below. There we go. And then we're going to start dumping fuel. There we go, fuel dumping. While we are doing that, we're going to test the high alpha, low speed fuel dump full afterburner thing in the manual. It basically says don't do that, you could damage the back of your plane, which kind of makes sense. I don't think anything's going to happen here, and it wouldn't surprise me if it doesn't. Okay, we are decent alpha. It doesn't really specify how much alpha and how low of speed, but doesn't really surprise me. I could also see potentially having a problem if you slow way down and then punch it, and then you have a negative pitch maneuver, which brings your afterburners up into kind of a cloud of lingering fuel vapor. I could see that being a problem, but I don't know. Nothing seems to be happening here, which is okay. Like right there, I could see it lighting off some fuel. It'd be kind of fun if that was happening in the game, if there's a big ball of fire out there, but I don't. I'm not going to lose any sleep over Eagle Dynamics not modeling that in, because it's not something you would normally do, and it's not a detail. I'm much more interested in the vapor coming over the leading edge root extensions and raindrops on the windshield behaving somewhat realistically, and even more important than that, the systems in the aircraft behaving the way they should otherwise, the systems that we use. I'm more interested in that, so I'm not going to sweat not being able to ignite a giant ball of fire behind my airplane because I'm goofing around, if that makes sense. So anyway, we're dumping fuel, and what we're going to do is we're going to go into a 4500 or a 45 degree or greater dive with less than 1900 pounds of fuel in the tanks. I'm not exactly for sure what would happen if you did that in real life, or why you wouldn't. May have something to do with the fact that maybe the feed tank behavior or the tank behaviors get a little bit different whenever you reach that state. I'm not really for sure, but it says don't do it, so I'm going to try it and see if the engine shut down or anything like that. Here we go. I don't think anything's going to happen. Alright, there we go. Let's go a little bit further. I don't want to go down too far because I have one last test to do, but nothing seems to be happening that would cause me alarm. It also doesn't say how long you would have to dive in that condition. Okay, so I have a big list of things here that I want to try out. Those were the more interesting things, or the easier things to test that were kind of interesting. And yeah, I mean, we didn't see anything crazy happen. I want to point everybody back to my early disclaimers. I don't need to restate them, but yeah, nothing crazy happening. That's okay. Could be a number of reasons for that. Hopefully, I can test some of these others. There's some interesting things that that I read in the NATOPS manual, and I'd like to come up with some tests for those. But we'll see. A lot of them don't necessarily matter. They're never anything you would do in the simulator. There's no reason to do a lot of them. I guess I could see some people doing them by accident, but it would be really I don't know. It would be hard to do them by accident. Okay. So anyway, this last one, I've actually tried it before, and that is ejecting. And I kind of locked my game up here a little bit. Ejecting. We're ejecting at over 17,000 feet, and this is an interesting thing. And I'm kind of glad this one's modeled just because. But obviously, there's not a lot of oxygen up there. The seat has some emergency oxygen in it, and here we go. But you know, it has a limited supply, so you don't necessarily want to be hanging under a canopy up there. And I'm not for sure that the oxygen may be in the seat itself, and when you separate from the seat, maybe you separate from the oxygen supply. I'm not really for sure, but the idea is there. Plane's going, awesome. The idea is that you got to get down to a somewhat safe altitude before you run out of oxygen, or you will die. So we're taking a little free fall ride on the ACE's seat and using up the emergency oxygen there. And when we get somewhere below 17,000 feet, I suspect we'll separate from the seat and have a chute deployment. And so that's what we're looking for there. I kind of like watching the airplanes as they sometimes they fly off. I've ejected out of airplanes, and that's not totally unrealistic. In the real world, sometimes the planes fly off and stabilize. Alright, so we should have very soon a chute deployment. There we go. Good chute, good chute. So that's kind of cool. Nice little detail that they've added in. Okay, I'm going to close the video out. It is long enough. I've tested some stuff. Didn't really see any strange effects. But aside from that, great job, Eagle Dynamics. So far, I'm extremely happy with the F-18. It's a ton of fun to fly around. So thank you guys for watching. I hope this was interesting and maybe even a little bit informative. And I hope to see you guys on the next video later.